The story of royal jewels begins not in the glittering display cases of modern palaces, but in the dusty tombs of ancient pharaohs and the crude workshops of prehistoric craftsmen. Long before diamonds became a girl's best friend, precious stones and metals served as the ultimate symbols of divine authority, political power, and supernatural protection. In the scorching sands of Egypt, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of the world's first royal jewelry collections. Tutankhamun's burial mask, crafted from solid gold and adorned with lapis lazuli, carnelian, and obsidian, represents more than artistic achievement. It embodies humanity's earliest understanding that rulers required divine adornment to bridge the gap between mortal flesh and celestial authority. The young pharaoh's tomb contained over 5,000 precious objects, including rings, bracelets, necklaces, and ceremonial daggers, each piece carefully selected to ensure his safe passage to the afterlife and his continued rule in the realm of the gods. The ancient Egyptians believed that gold was the flesh of the gods, particularly Ra, the sun deity. This belief transformed royal jewelry from mere decoration into sacred armor against the forces of chaos and evil. Queen Nefertiti's famous bust, originally adorned with precious stones and gold leaf, demonstrated how royal women wielded jewelry as instruments of soft power, using beauty and divine symbolism to influence political decisions and maintain dynastic stability. Moving northward to Mesopotamia, the royal cemetery of Ur reveals another chapter in the early history of royal jewels. Queen Pwabi, buried around 2450 BCE, wore an elaborate headdress of gold leaves, carnelian beads, and lapis lazuli. But the true shock came when archaeologists discovered that her entire retinue, soldiers, musicians, and servants, had been buried alive alongside her, their own bodies adorned with precious ornaments that marked their rank in the royal hierarchy. This macabre discovery illustrates the immense value placed on royal jewelry in ancient societies, where precious stones were literally worth dying for. The development of trade routes across Asia and Europe transformed royal jewelry from local symbols of power into international currencies of diplomacy. The Silk Road, stretching from China to the Mediterranean, became a conduit for precious stones that would eventually adorn the crowns of European monarchs. Chinese emperors coveted nephrite jade, believing it possessed immortal properties, while Roman emperors preferred pearls, which they considered more valuable than gold. These preferences weren't merely aesthetic. They reflected complex belief systems about the spiritual and protective qualities of different gemstones. The Roman Empire's expansion brought new gemstones into European royal collections. Emeralds from Egypt, sapphires from Ceylon, and garnets from India began appearing in the regalia of Roman emperors and their provincial governors. The famous cameo of Augustus, carved from a massive sardonyx stone, demonstrates how Roman rulers used precious stones to create portable propaganda, depicting their military victories and divine legitimacy in miniature masterpieces that could be worn and displayed throughout the empire. Byzantine emperors elevated royal jewelry to unprecedented heights of complexity and symbolism. The crown of Constantine VII, described by contemporary historians as weighing nearly 20 pounds and containing hundreds of precious stones, required special neck exercises to build the strength needed to wear it during lengthy court ceremonies. Byzantine royal jewelry incorporated Christian symbolism alongside traditional imperial iconography, creating pieces that served simultaneously as religious relics and political statements. The medieval period witnessed the emergence of hereditary crown jewels as distinct from personal royal jewelry. The Holy Roman Empire's regalia, including the imperial crown with its distinctive cross and the famous Wittelsbach diamond, established the precedent that certain jewels belong to the office rather than the individual ruler. This concept revolutionized royal succession, as control over specific crown jewels became synonymous with legitimate rule. English royal jewelry traditions began taking shape during the Anglo-Saxon period. The Staffordshire hoard, discovered in 2009, contains over 3,500 pieces of Anglo-Saxon gold and silver, including sword fittings and decorative elements that likely belong to 7th century royal warriors. These discoveries reveal that English royal jewelry initially emphasized military prowess and battlefield success rather than the courtly refinement that would later characterize European royal collections. The Norman conquest of 1066 brought continental European jewelry traditions to England, but also established the unfortunate precedent of royal jewels being lost, stolen, or destroyed during political upheavals. William the Conqueror's crown, described in contemporary accounts as a masterpiece of goldsmith's art set with precious stones from across the known world, vanished during the civil wars that followed his death. This pattern of loss and recovery would plague English royal jewelry collections for centuries to come. The development of Gothic architectural styles influenced royal jewelry design throughout medieval Europe. Just as cathedral builders reached toward heaven with soaring spires and pointed arches, royal jewelers began creating pieces that emphasized vertical lines and celestial symbolism. The crown of St. Louis, commissioned for the French king's crusade to the Holy Land, featured a distinctive cross design that proclaimed the monarch's role as defender of Christendom, while incorporating practical elements like hidden compartments for storing holy relics during battle. Medieval royal women wielded jewelry as instruments of diplomacy and alliance building. Eleanor of Aquitaine's extensive jewelry collection, accumulated through 2 marriages and inherited through her vast landholdings, functioned as a portable treasury that she could deploy to finance political campaigns, secure military alliances, or negotiate royal marriages. Her granddaughter, Blanche of Castile, used jewelry gifts to cement relationships with powerful noble families throughout France, creating networks of obligation and loyalty that proved more durable than formal treaties. The Crusades introduced European royal courts to exotic gemstones and jewelry-making techniques from the Islamic world and Byzantine Empire. Returning Crusader knights brought back not only precious stones, but also knowledge of advanced cutting and setting techniques that would revolutionize European jewelry design. The famous Charlemagne talisman, actually created during the medieval period but attributed to the legendary emperor, combines Western Christian symbolism with Eastern gemstone selection and craftsmanship techniques learned during the Crusades. Trade guilds began regulating royal jewelry production during the late medieval period, establishing quality standards and apprenticeship systems that ensured consistent craftsmanship across different royal courts. The Goldsmiths Company of London, chartered in 1327, developed hallmarking systems that guaranteed the purity of precious metals used in royal jewelry, while similar organizations in Paris, Venice, and other major cities created international standards that facilitated diplomatic gift exchanges between royal families. The economic importance of royal jewelry during the medieval period cannot be overstated. Crown jewels served as national treasuries, strategic reserves that could be pawned, sold, or melted down during emergencies. King John of England pawned his crown jewels to finance military campaigns, while Charles V of France used his jewelry collection as collateral for loans from Italian banking houses. This practice established royal jewels as liquid assets that monarchs could deploy during financial crises. Religious significance permeated every aspect of medieval royal jewelry design and use. Many pieces incorporated actual relics, fragments of the true cross, saints' bones, or pieces of the crown of thorns, making them sacred objects as well as symbols of temporal power. The Iron Crown of Lombardy, traditionally used to crown Holy Roman emperors, was believed to contain a nail from the crucifixion of Christ, transforming the coronation ceremony into a religious sacrament that linked earthly rule with divine authority. The development of specialized royal jewelry for different ceremonial occasions created complex protocols that governed when and how different pieces could be worn. Coronation crowns differed from everyday circlets, which differed from battle helms, each serving specific functions within the elaborate theater of medieval royal display. These protocols became so important that violation of jewelry etiquette could spark diplomatic incidents or challenge the legitimacy of royal authority. As the medieval period drew to a close, royal jewelry collections had evolved from simple symbols of wealth and status into complex systems of political communication, economic security, and religious authority. The gemstones adorning medieval crowns carried centuries of accumulated meaning. Their provenance and history as important as their beauty or monetary value. These foundations would support the even more elaborate royal jewelry traditions that emerged during the Renaissance and early modern periods. The Renaissance explosion of art, culture, and exploration fundamentally transformed royal jewelry from medieval symbols of divine authority into sophisticated expressions of personal taste, political ambition, and international prestige. The period between 1400 and 1650 witnessed the emergence of court cultures that treated jewelry as high art, the influx of unprecedented wealth from New World colonies, and the development of gem-cutting techniques that revealed the true brilliance hidden within precious stones. The Italian Renaissance courts led this transformation, with the Medici family of Florence setting standards that would influence royal jewelry design across Europe. Lorenzo de' Medici, known as Lorenzo the Magnificent, assembled a collection that included not only traditional European gemstones, but also exotic materials like turquoise from Persia, coral from the Red Sea, and pearls of extraordinary size from the Indian Ocean. His inventory, preserved in the Medici archives, reveals a collecting philosophy that valued artistic innovation over traditional symbolism, commissioning pieces from master craftsmen who treated jewelry as miniature sculptures rather than mere displays of wealth. The invention of the rose cut for diamonds, attributed to Cardinal Mazarin's jeweler in the 1640s, revolutionized the appearance and value of royal jewelry collections. Previously, diamonds have been valued primarily for their hardness and supposed magical properties, but the rose cut revealed their optical properties, creating sparkle and brilliance that made them far more desirable than colored stones of equal size. This technical breakthrough coincided with the discovery of significant diamond deposits in India, particularly the legendary Golconda mines, which produced stones of exceptional quality and size that would become the centerpieces of European royal collections. The Spanish conquest of the Americas fundamentally altered the global jewelry market and the wealth available to European monarchs. The treasures looted from Aztec and Inca civilizations included not only vast quantities of gold and silver, but also emeralds of unprecedented size and quality from Colombian mines. The Spanish crown's monopoly on New World precious metals created inflation throughout Europe, while simultaneously enabling Spanish royalty to commission jewelry pieces of extraordinary magnificence. Philip II of Spain's crown, created in 1580, incorporated Colombian emeralds weighing over 100 carats each, alongside pearls from the Caribbean and gold refined using techniques learned from Amerindian craftsmen. Catherine de' Medici's arrival in France as the bride of the future Henry II brought Italian Renaissance jewelry traditions to the French court, but her true impact came through her innovative use of jewelry as diplomatic currency. Her collection included over 1,000 precious stones, many set in removable mounts that allowed for creative recombination depending on political circumstances. When negotiating the marriage of her daughter Elizabeth to Philip II of Spain, Catherine personally selected jewelry gifts that conveyed specific political messages, using the language of gemstone symbolism to communicate France's expectations for the alliance. The Elizabethan court elevated royal jewelry to new heights of symbolic complexity and artistic achievement. Elizabeth I's famous portrait jewelry, including the Armada jewel and various pieces commemorating military victories, established the precedent of using precious stones to create visual narratives about royal accomplishments. The Virgin Queen's extensive collection served multiple functions, demonstrating England's growing wealth, attracting potential marriage allies, and creating a distinctive English court style that competed with continental European traditions. Her inventory included over 2,000 individual pieces, from simple rings to elaborate bodice ornaments that required teams of servants to attach properly. The development of new gem-cutting techniques during the Renaissance period transformed the visual impact of royal jewelry, while creating new opportunities for artistic expression. The table cut, which created flat surfaces that could be engraved with royal insignia or symbolic designs, allowed jewelers to combine lapidary work with miniature engraving. The emergence of specialized gem-cutting centers in Venice, Prague, and Antwerp created international markets for both raw stones and finished pieces, enabling royal courts to commission jewelry from the finest craftsmen regardless of geographic location. Marie de' Medici's regency in France marked a crucial transition in royal jewelry traditions, as she attempted to balance Italian Renaissance aesthetics with emerging French court preferences. Her coronation crown, designed by the court jeweler to the Louvre, incorporated innovative setting techniques that allowed individual stones to be removed and replaced without destroying the overall design. This modularity reflected the increasing financial pressures on European monarchies, as even wealthy royal families needed to adapt their jewelry collections to changing political and economic circumstances. The 30 Years' War devastated many European royal jewelry collections, as monarchs sold or pawned precious pieces to finance military campaigns. However, this period also demonstrated the international liquidity of fine jewelry, as pieces created for German princes appeared in Italian collections, while Spanish court jewelry found its way to Protestant courts in Northern Europe. The war's aftermath created opportunities for newly wealthy merchant families to acquire royal-quality pieces, beginning the gradual democratization of luxury jewelry that would accelerate in subsequent centuries. The emergence of professional jewelry appraisers and catalog systems during the Renaissance period reflected the increasing complexity and value of royal collections. The imperial treasury in Vienna developed the first systematic inventory methods, creating detailed descriptions that included not only the physical characteristics of each piece, but also its historical provenance, symbolic significance, and estimated monetary value. These catalogs became models for royal treasuries throughout Europe and established precedents for the museum documentation systems still used today. Technical innovations in metalworking during the Renaissance enabled jewelers to create pieces of unprecedented delicacy and complexity. The development of improved wire drawing techniques allowed for the creation of intricate filigree work, while advances in enameling enabled jewelers to add color and detail that complemented rather than competed with precious stones. The famous Cellini salt, created for Francis I of France, demonstrates the period's integration of sculpture, goldsmithing, and jewelry design into unified artistic statements that functioned as both practical objects and works of art. The Protestant Reformation significantly impacted royal jewelry traditions, as Reformed churches questioned the appropriateness of ostentatious display, while Catholic courts responded by increasing the religious symbolism incorporated into royal regalia. Protestant rulers like Gustav Vasa of Sweden simplified their court jewelry while maintaining pieces necessary for diplomatic protocol, creating a more austere aesthetic that influenced Northern European court styles for centuries. Catholic rulers like the Habsburg emperors responded by commissioning pieces that explicitly celebrated Catholic doctrine, using precious stones to create portable altars and religious narratives. The development of international postal systems during the Renaissance facilitated the emergence of a European-wide market for royal jewelry, as courts could commission pieces from distant craftsmen and arrange for secure delivery of both raw materials and finished works. The Fugger banking family's network enabled German princes to purchase stones from Venetian merchants, while Spanish gold financed jewelry workshops in Prague and Antwerp. This international market created stylistic cross-pollination that gradually unified European royal jewelry traditions while preserving distinctive national characteristics. Colonial expansion introduced European royal courts to entirely new categories of precious materials, including jade from Central America, amber from the Baltic region, and exotic heartstones from Africa and Asia. These materials required the development of new cutting and setting techniques while challenging traditional European aesthetic preferences. The incorporation of non-European materials into royal jewelry collections reflected the global reach of European political power while creating opportunities for artistic innovation that would influence jewelry design for centuries. The Renaissance period also witnessed the emergence of jewelry as a medium for scientific and technological display, as royal courts competed to demonstrate their patronage of learning and innovation. Mechanical jewelry pieces, including watches incorporated into pendants and rings that revealed hidden astronomical instruments, combined practical function with artistic beauty. These pieces reflected the period's integration of art, science, and craftsmanship while establishing precedents for the luxury watch industry that would emerge in subsequent centuries. The increasing sophistication of Renaissance royal courts created demand for jewelry pieces designed for specific ceremonial functions, leading to the development of specialized forms like presentation swords, ceremonial keys, and diplomatic gifts that required precise understanding of recipient courts' aesthetic preferences and political sensibilities. Master jewelers became cultural ambassadors, creating pieces that could navigate complex international relationships while advancing their patrons' political objectives through the careful deployment of symbolic imagery and materials. As the Renaissance period concluded, royal jewelry collections had evolved into complex cultural institutions that reflected not only personal taste and national wealth, but also international political relationships, religious allegiances, and artistic achievements. The technical innovations and aesthetic developments of this period would provide the foundation for the even more elaborate jewelry traditions that emerged during the Baroque period and the age of absolute monarchy. The 17th and 18th centuries witnessed the transformation of royal jewelry from Renaissance art objects into instruments of absolute power, diplomatic warfare, and imperial competition. The period spanning from Louis XIV's reign through the French Revolution represents the apex of European royal jewelry traditions, when monarchs commanded resources that enabled the creation of collections so magnificent they redefined luxury itself, while simultaneously planting the seeds of revolutionary resentment that would ultimately destroy many of these same treasures. Louis XIV of France, the Sun King, revolutionized royal jewelry by treating it as essential infrastructure for absolute monarchy. His philosophy that the king's magnificence directly reflected the strength and prosperity of the nation led to jewelry expenditures that consumed significant portions of the French treasury. The royal workshops at Versailles employed over 300 craftsmen working exclusively on jewelry, gold, and silver objects for the court, creating an industrial complex devoted entirely to royal magnificence. The Sun King's daily routine required multiple jewelry changes, from morning audiences requiring modest pieces to evening entertainments demanding the full display of crown jewels, creating a theatrical performance of power that awed foreign diplomats and intimidated domestic rivals. The discovery and development of Brazilian diamond mines in the early 18th century revolutionized European royal jewelry by making large, high-quality diamonds available in unprecedented quantities. The Minas Gerais region produced stones that rivaled Indian diamonds in quality while offering far more reliable supply chains. Portuguese royal control over these mines enabled the creation of jewelry pieces featuring diamonds as primary rather than accent stones, leading to the development of new cutting techniques designed to maximize brilliance and fire. The Portuguese crown's diamond tiara, created in 1750, featured over 1,000 carats of Brazilian diamonds in a design that emphasized light and movement rather than the static symbolism of earlier periods. Marie Antoinette's jewelry collection became both the symbol of royal excess and a contributing factor to the revolutionary sentiment that would ultimately destroy the French monarchy. Her famous diamond necklace affair, involving a 650-carat diamond necklace originally commissioned from Madame du Barry, created a scandal that permanently damaged the royal family's reputation while demonstrating the dangerous political implications of ostentatious jewelry display. The Queen's collection, valued at over 10 million livres in 1789 currency, included pieces that required their own security details and storage facilities, creating practical problems that highlighted the disconnect between royal luxury and national economic difficulties. The development of the brilliant cut for diamonds during this period transformed these stones from curiosities into the most desirable gemstones in European royal collections. Venetian craftsman Vincenzo Peruzzi's innovations in faceting created diamonds that captured and reflected light with unprecedented intensity, making them ideal for evening court entertainments illuminated by candles and oil lamps. The brilliant cut's optical properties made diamonds visible and impressive even in the relatively dim lighting conditions of 18th century palaces, contributing to their emergence as the ultimate status symbols for European royalty. Catherine the Great of Russia assembled one of history's most impressive royal jewelry collections, combining traditional European pieces with exotic materials from the vast Russian Empire. Her crown, created for her 1762 coronation, featured the famous spinel, incorrectly called the Black Prince's ruby, alongside diamonds from Russian mines and pearls from northern rivers. Catherine's collecting philosophy emphasized both beauty and political symbolism, using jewelry to demonstrate Russia's emergence as a major European power while incorporating distinctly Russian design elements that distinguished her court from Western European traditions. The British crown jewels underwent significant reorganization during this period, as the House of Hanover brought continental European jewelry traditions to England while adapting them to British constitutional monarchy requirements. George I's arrival in 1714 coincided with increased British colonial wealth from India, enabling the creation of new crown jewels that incorporated Indian diamonds and other precious materials acquired through the East India Company's expanding operations. The reorganization of the Tower of London's Jewel House reflected both increased security concerns and the growing public interest in royal regalia as symbols of national rather than merely dynastic prestige. The 7 Years' War demonstrated both the military utility and vulnerability of royal jewelry collections, as European monarchs pawned crown jewels to finance military campaigns while simultaneously using captured enemy jewelry to demonstrate victory and demoralize opponents. Frederick the Great of Prussia's ability to maintain his jewelry collection throughout the war while his enemies were forced to sell, this became a powerful symbol of Prussian resilience and military effectiveness, contributing to Prussia's emergence as a major European power. The development of sophisticated security systems for royal jewelry during this period reflected both increasing values and growing threats from theft, political upheaval, and military attack. The construction of specialized treasury vaults beneath royal palaces, complete with multiple locks, armed guards, and elaborate protocols for access, created the precedents for modern high-security storage systems. The Vienna Treasury's innovative rotating display system, which kept most pieces hidden while allowing controlled public viewing of selected items, balanced security requirements with the propaganda value of displaying royal magnificence. Imperial expansion during the 18th century brought exotic materials and artistic influences into European royal jewelry collections from Africa, Asia, and the Americas. British control over Indian diamond mines through the East India Company enabled the acquisition of legendary stones like the Koh-i-Noor diamond, while Spanish dominance in South America continued to supply emeralds and precious metals that financed Habsburg jewelry expenditures. These colonial materials were often incorporated into European-style settings, creating hybrid pieces that reflected global power relationships while satisfying European aesthetic preferences. The emergence of professional jewelry historians and connoisseurs during this period reflected the increasing cultural importance of royal collections as artistic and historical treasures rather than merely displays of wealth. The systematic cataloging of royal jewelry collections began during this era, creating documentation that would prove invaluable for later historians while establishing precedents for modern museum curation practices. These early scholars developed terminology and classification systems that remain influential in contemporary jewelry studies. Diplomatic gift-giving reached new levels of sophistication during the age of absolute monarchy, as royal courts competed to demonstrate wealth and taste through increasingly elaborate jewelry presentations. The exchange of jewelry between royal families during marriage negotiations, treaty signings, and state visits created complex networks of obligation and alliance that complemented formal diplomatic relationships. The Stuart Sapphire's journey from Scotland to England to France and back to England illustrates how individual pieces became entangled in international political relationships spanning multiple generations. The technical achievements of 18th-century royal jewelers established standards for craftsmanship that have never been surpassed, as unlimited budgets and abundant time enabled the creation of pieces requiring thousands of hours of skilled labor. The techniques developed for setting the French crown jewels, including innovations in invisible mounting and flexible construction that allowed pieces to be worn comfortably despite their size and weight, influenced jewelry design throughout Europe while establishing French supremacy in luxury craftsmanship that persisted long after the monarchy's destruction. Women's increasing political influence during this period manifested itself through their jewelry collections and the ways these pieces were used to communicate political messages, form alliances, and exercise soft power within core environments. Empress Maria Theresa of Austria's strategic use of jewelry gifts to secure noble support during succession crises demonstrated how female rulers could deploy precious objects as instruments of statecraft, while Madame de Pompadour's influential jewelry collection reflected the growing power of royal mistresses and their ability to shape court culture and political decision-making. The philosophical Enlightenment created new critical perspectives on royal jewelry that questioned both its moral appropriateness and its political implications, as writers like Voltaire and Diderot argued that massive expenditures on luxury objects while populations struggled with poverty undermined the moral authority of monarchical government. These intellectual challenges to royal jewelry traditions contributed to the revolutionary sentiment that would ultimately destroy many of Europe's greatest collections while establishing new frameworks for thinking about luxury, equality, and appropriate government expenditure. The technical innovations required to create and maintain 18th-century royal jewelry collections contributed to broader developments in metallurgy, gemology, and precision manufacturing that would influence the Industrial Revolution. The workshops serving European royal courts became centers of technical innovation, developing new alloys, cutting techniques, and mechanical devices that found applications far beyond luxury jewelry production, contributing to the broader transformation of European society and economy during this crucial period. As the 18th century drew to a close, royal jewelry collections represented the culmination of centuries of artistic development, technical innovation, and political symbolism. However, these same collections had become so associated with royal excess and social inequality that they would become primary targets for revolutionary destruction, marking the end of an era and the beginning of entirely new relationships between political power, luxury display, and public accountability. The period from 1789 to 1945 witnessed the systematic destruction, theft, and dispersal of many of Europe's greatest royal jewelry collections as political revolutions, world wars, and social upheaval shattered the traditional systems that had protected these treasures for centuries. The French Revolution's assault on royal symbols initiated a pattern of jewelry destruction that would continue through the Russian Revolution, 2 world wars, and the collapse of multiple European monarchies, forever altering the landscape of royal regalia and creating the modern museum and auction house systems that now preserve and distribute historical jewelry pieces. The French Revolution's attack on royal jewelry began immediately with the storming of Versailles in October 1789, when revolutionary crowds seized accessible pieces from the royal apartments while more valuable items were hastily concealed or smuggled out of France. The revolutionary government's systematic inventory and evaluation of crown jewels revealed the staggering wealth accumulated by the French monarchy. Over 8,000 individual pieces valued at more than 23 million livres, equivalent to billions of dollars in contemporary currency. However, the revolutionaries faced the fundamental problem of what to do with objects that embodied everything they opposed while simultaneously representing enormous financial value that could fund revolutionary programs. The September massacres of 1792 included the systematic looting of the garde meuble, the royal treasury, where France's crown jewels were stored. Professional thieves, working with inside knowledge provided by corrupt guards, made off with some of history's most famous diamonds, including the Regent diamond and the French blue, later recut as the Hope diamond. The theft was so thorough and well-organized that it suggested revolutionary authorities had deliberately facilitated the robbery to prevent the jewelry from being recovered by counter-revolutionary forces, while the scattered pieces could be sold individually to finance revolutionary activities across Europe. Marie Antoinette's desperate attempts to preserve some royal jewelry during her imprisonment revealed both the personal attachment monarchs felt to these objects and their practical value as potential sources of escape funding. Her secret correspondence with loyalist agents included detailed inventories of jewelry pieces hidden in various locations, along with instructions for their recovery and sale to finance rescue attempts. The discovery of these letters by revolutionary authorities provided additional evidence for treason charges while revealing the international networks of jewelry dealers, diplomats, and aristocratic refugees who were facilitating the movement of French royal treasures across European borders. Napoleon's rise to power created new opportunities for jewelry accumulation and display, but also demonstrated how revolutionary governments could appropriate royal symbolism while rejecting traditional legitimacy claims. The emperor's coronation crown, created by the goldsmith Martin-Guillaume Bayonnaise, incorporated surviving French royal diamonds alongside new stones looted from conquered territories, creating a hybrid piece that claimed continuity with French royal traditions while celebrating revolutionary achievement. Napoleon's jewelry gifts to his family members and marshals distributed French royal stones throughout Europe, permanently scattering collections that had taken centuries to assemble. The Napoleonic Wars facilitated the largest redistribution of royal jewelry in European history, as conquering armies seized treasures from defeated monarchies, while refugee royal families liquidated collections to finance exile and resistance activities. The Prussian crown jewels disappeared during the French occupation of Berlin, while Habsburg treasures were evacuated multiple times as French armies advanced and retreated across Austria. Spanish royal jewelry was systematically looted during the Peninsula Campaign, with many pieces finding their way into French private collections where they remained hidden for decades after Napoleon's defeat. The Congress of Vienna's attempts to restore pre-revolutionary order included provisions for recovering stolen royal jewelry, but the practical difficulties of identification and proof of ownership meant that many displaced pieces were never returned to their original collections. The emergence of London and Amsterdam as centers for jewelry trading reflected the new reality of a European market flooded with displaced royal treasures, creating opportunities for wealthy merchants and industrialists to acquire pieces that had previously been accessible only to royalty. This redistribution contributed to the democratization of luxury, while simultaneously destroying the exclusive character that had made royal jewelry politically significant. The 1848 revolutions across Europe triggered another wave of jewelry dispersal, as monarchs fled with portable treasures while revolutionary governments seized larger pieces for the state. The flight of Pope Pius IX from Rome included the evacuation of significant papal jewelry, while the Austrian imperial family's hasty departure from Vienna left behind pieces that were later sold to finance Hungarian revolutionary activities. The pattern established during the French Revolution repeated across Europe, as revolutionary authorities struggled to balance ideological opposition to royal symbols with practical need for the financial resources these objects represented. The Crimean War marked the first time that modern warfare's industrial scale directly threatened royal jewelry collections, as the siege of Sevastopol forced Russian evacuation of Crimean palace treasures while British and French forces captured enemy royal regalia as military trophies. The war's extensive use of photography documented destroyed palaces and scattered treasures, creating visual evidence of warfare's impact on cultural heritage that would influence later international agreements about protecting civilian treasures during military conflicts. The unification of Germany created new opportunities for royal jewelry concentration, as Prussian dominance enabled the acquisition of pieces from defeated German princes and eliminated independent courts that had maintained rival collections. Kaiser Wilhelm I's imperial crown incorporated stones from various German royal houses, symbolically representing German unity, while physically consolidating treasures that had previously been scattered across dozens of independent territories. However, this consolidation also created larger targets for future destruction and seizure. The Russian Revolution of 1917 precipitated the most devastating single loss of royal jewelry in world history, as the Bolshevik seizure of Romanov treasures included collections that rivaled those of any European dynasty. The execution of the imperial family complicated efforts to preserve these treasures, as revolutionary ideology demanded destruction of royal symbols, while practical considerations suggested their sale to finance revolutionary programs. Soviet authorities' systematic cataloging of seized treasures revealed collections worth hundreds of millions of rubles, including pieces that had never been publicly displayed and whose existence was known only through imperial family correspondence. The murder of the Romanov family in 1918 created lasting mysteries about jewelry concealed on their persons and hidden in their clothing, as surviving accounts suggested family members had sewn diamonds and other small precious objects into their garments as portable wealth for potential escape. The discovery of the family's remains decades later included forensic evidence of hidden jewelry, confirming that even in extremists, royal families viewed precious objects as essential survival resources. The Soviet government's subsequent sales of Romanov jewelry through international dealers distributed Russian imperial treasures worldwide while providing hard currency for revolutionary programs. World War I's unprecedented destruction extended to royal jewelry collections as palace bombardments, revolutionary seizures, and military requisitions destroyed or scattered treasures throughout Europe. The German army's systematic looting of Belgian royal palaces included detailed inventories of seized jewelry, while the collapse of the Ottoman Empire scattered the Sultan's legendary gem collection across multiple countries. The war's aftermath created a generation of impoverished European royalty forced to sell family treasures to maintain basic living standards, flooding international markets with royal jewelry and permanently altering collecting patterns. The interwar period witnessed the emergence of American collectors as major players in the royal jewelry market, as European economic difficulties coincided with American prosperity to create unprecedented opportunities for transatlantic treasure acquisition. Wealthy Americans like J.P. Morgan and Henry Clay Frick assembled collections that rivaled those of European royalty, while American museums began systematic acquisition programs that would eventually house many of Europe's most important royal jewelry pieces. This westward movement of European treasures reflected broader shifts in global wealth and cultural influence. World War II created the most systematic and devastating assault on royal jewelry collections in history, as Nazi policies of cultural appropriation combined with the practical exigencies of total war to threaten every major collection in Europe. The Nazi seizure of Jewish-owned jewelry collections provided a precedent for later confiscations of royal treasures, while German advances into neutral countries like Belgium and the Netherlands exposed previously secure royal collections to systematic looting. The development of detailed Nazi catalogs for seized cultural treasures included specific provisions for royal jewelry, reflecting the regime's understanding of these objects' propaganda value alongside their monetary worth. The Soviet advance into Eastern Europe created additional opportunities for royal jewelry seizure, as Red Army units systematically searched palaces and aristocratic residences for portable treasures. The disappearance of Hungarian, Romanian, and Bulgarian royal jewelry during Soviet occupation created mysteries that persist to the present day, as Cold War politics prevented international efforts to recover or even catalog missing pieces. Soviet authorities' policy of melting down precious metal objects for industrial use, while preserving only gemstones, resulted in the permanent destruction of countless historical pieces whose artistic value far exceeded their material worth. The emergence of Holocaust scholarship revealed the personal dimension of jewelry loss during World War II, as Jewish families had traditionally maintained jewelry collections as portable wealth that could facilitate immigration or survival during persecution. The Nazi confiscation of Jewish jewelry collections provided both precedents and practical experience for later seizures of royal treasures, while the post-war efforts to recover stolen Jewish property created legal frameworks that would later be applied to royal jewelry restitution cases. The development of international law regarding cultural property protection emerged directly from World War II experiences with systematic treasure looting, including specific provisions for royal regalia and ceremonial objects. The 1954 Hague Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property in the event of armed conflict established principles that would govern later disputes about royal jewelry ownership, while creating mechanisms for international cooperation in recovery efforts. These legal developments reflected growing recognition that royal jewelry collections represented cultural heritage belonging to entire nations rather than merely dynastic property. As World War II concluded, the traditional world of royal jewelry had been permanently transformed. Many of Europe's greatest collections have been destroyed, scattered, or stolen, while surviving pieces increasingly found their way into museums and private collections rather than active royal use. The democratization of luxury, the destruction of traditional royal courts, and the emergence of new international legal frameworks had combined to create an entirely new environment for royal jewelry, setting the stage for the modern period's emphasis on preservation, scholarship, and public access rather than exclusive royal display. The period from 1945 to the present has witnessed the transformation of royal jewelry from private dynastic treasures into public cultural heritage, as surviving monarchies adapted to democratic expectations while new technologies revolutionized both the study and security of historical jewelry collections. The post-war era's emphasis on accessibility, transparency, and cultural preservation has fundamentally altered the relationship between royal families and their jewelry, creating new traditions that balance historical continuity with contemporary social values, while navigating the challenges of global media scrutiny and evolving concepts of appropriate luxury display. Queen Elizabeth II's coronation in 1953 marked the beginning of modern royal jewelry traditions, as the ceremony was televised worldwide and subjected to unprecedented public scrutiny that forced the British royal family to articulate the historical and constitutional significance of crown jewels in ways that previous generations had never required. The coronation crowns 2,868 diamonds, 17 sapphires, 11 emeralds, and hundreds of pearls were individually cataloged and explained to global audiences, transforming these objects from mysterious symbols of divine authority into documented historical artifacts with known provenance and measurable characteristics. This transparency established new standards for royal jewelry display that would influence monarchies worldwide. The post-war recovery of Nazi-looted jewelry created complex legal and ethical challenges that continue to influence royal collections today. The establishment of the Commission for Looted Art in Europe and similar organizations led to the systematic investigation of royal jewelry provenance, revealing that many pieces in surviving collections had questionable ownership histories dating back centuries rather than merely wartime theft. The British royal family's voluntary return of jewelry pieces with problematic provenance, including items acquired during colonial periods, established precedents for ethical collection management that other royal families have gradually adopted. The decolonization movements of the 1950s and 1960s forced European monarchies to confront difficult questions about jewelry acquired from former colonies, as newly independent nations demanded the return of cultural treasures that had been removed during colonial rule. The ongoing disputes over the Kohinoor diamond, claimed by India, Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan, illustrate the complex legal and political issues surrounding colonial-era royal jewelry acquisitions. These disputes have led to increased scholarly research into the historical circumstances of acquisition, creating detailed documentation that has enhanced understanding of both jewelry history and colonial relationships. The development of modern conservation science revolutionized the care and study of historical royal jewelry, as X-ray crystallography, spectrographic analysis, and other advanced techniques revealed previously unknown details about materials, manufacturing techniques, and historical modifications. The discovery that many supposedly ancient royal jewelry pieces were actually later recreations or heavily modified originals challenged traditional assumptions about authenticity while providing new insights into the evolution of royal jewelry traditions. These scientific investigations established new standards for documentation and authentication that influenced contemporary royal jewelry acquisition and display practices. The emergence of television and later digital media fundamentally altered public relationships with royal jewelry, as broadcast ceremonies and online exhibitions made these objects accessible to global audiences while creating new expectations for educational content and historical interpretation. The British royal family's development of detailed online catalogs for the crown jewels, including high-resolution photography and historical documentation, established precedents for digital access that other monarchies have emulated. This technological democratization has made royal jewelry collections more accessible than ever before while creating new challenges for security and authenticity verification. The social upheavals of the 1960s challenged traditional assumptions about royal jewelry appropriateness, as younger generations questioned the display of enormous wealth alongside persistent global poverty and inequality. European royal families responded by modifying their jewelry use patterns, emphasizing historical and cultural significance over pure ostentation, while developing charitable foundations that used royal jewelry collections to support educational and cultural programs. Princess Margaret's decision to sell part of her jewelry collection to support charitable causes established precedents for philanthropic use of royal treasures that continue to influence contemporary royal practice. The development of international auction houses as major players in the royal jewelry market reflected both the continuing dispersal of historical collections and the emergence of new categories of collectors interested in acquiring pieces with royal provenance. Sotheby's and Christie's royal jewelry auctions of the 1970s and 1980s revealed the continuing market demand for pieces with documented royal connections while creating transparent pricing mechanisms that had previously been limited to private dealer networks. These public sales established market values for different categories of royal jewelry while making historical pieces accessible to museums and institutional collectors. The Iranian Revolution of 1979 precipitated another major dispersal of royal jewelry, as the Pahlavi dynasty's enormous collection was seized by revolutionary authorities and subsequently sold or distributed to support revolutionary programs. The scattered Pahlavi jewelry included pieces acquired from European royal families during the 20th century, creating complex ownership chains that continue to complicate authentication and recovery efforts. The revolution's impact on international jewelry markets demonstrated the continuing vulnerability of royal collections to political upheaval while highlighting the global character of contemporary jewelry trading. The Cold War's conclusion enabled the first systematic investigation of Soviet-held royal jewelry collections, as glasnost policies permitted limited access to previously secret archives containing documentation of seizures during and after World War II. The discovery of extensive Soviet catalogs detailing royal jewelry acquisitions revealed the scope of losses that had previously been unknown to Western scholars, while providing evidence for potential restitution claims. However, the collapse of the Soviet Union created new uncertainties about ownership and custody of these collections, as successor states disputed control over treasures that crossed multiple national boundaries. The development of sophisticated security technologies during the late 20th century enabled new approaches to royal jewelry display and storage, as electronic monitoring systems, climate control, and advanced materials allowed for safer public exhibition while maintaining necessary security levels. The Tower of London's renovation of the Jewel House in the 1990s incorporated state-of-the-art security and environmental controls while creating exhibition spaces that could accommodate millions of annual visitors. These technological advances influenced royal jewelry facilities worldwide, while establishing new standards for balancing public access with preservation requirements. The emergence of celebrity culture during the 1980s and 1990s created new contexts for royal jewelry display, as media coverage increasingly focused on the fashion and style aspects of royal regalia alongside their historical and constitutional significance. Princess Diana's use of royal jewelry to support charitable causes while maintaining high fashion visibility demonstrated how modern royalty could deploy these objects to advance social causes while satisfying public interest in royal style. Her approach influenced other royal families' jewelry strategies while establishing new traditions for combining historical pieces with contemporary design elements. The digital revolution's impact on royal jewelry scholarship has been transformative, as online databases, digital archives, and collaborative research platforms have enabled international cooperation in documenting and studying historical collections. The Royal Collection Trust's digitization of jewelry catalogs, combined with similar efforts by other royal institutions, has created unprecedented resources for researchers while making detailed information accessible to global audiences. These digital initiatives have revealed previously unknown connections between different collections while facilitating the identification of dispersed pieces that might be candidates for repatriation or restitution. Contemporary royal jewelry design reflects evolving social values regarding sustainability, ethical sourcing, and cultural sensitivity, as modern monarchies face expectations to demonstrate responsible luxury consumption while maintaining traditional ceremonial functions. The British royal family's adoption of conflict-free diamond policies and their emphasis on recycling historical pieces for new occasions demonstrates how traditional institutions can adapt to contemporary ethical standards. These practices influence both public expectations and commercial jewelry industry standards while maintaining the historical continuity that legitimizes royal institutions. The social media age has created unprecedented transparency requirements for royal jewelry use, as every public appearance is documented and analyzed by global audiences with access to detailed historical information about specific pieces. This scrutiny has forced royal families to develop sophisticated communication strategies that explain their jewelry choices while maintaining appropriate dignity and historical respect. The viral nature of social media content means that royal jewelry appearances can reach billions of people instantaneously, creating both opportunities for education and risks of misinterpretation or controversy. Climate change concerns have influenced contemporary royal jewelry conservation strategies, as rising temperatures, humidity fluctuations, and extreme weather events threaten historical collections while energy costs for climate control systems create environmental dilemmas. The development of sustainable conservation techniques and renewable energy systems for royal jewelry facilities represents both practical necessity and symbolic commitment to environmental responsibility. These adaptations demonstrate how even the most traditional institutions must respond to contemporary global challenges. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated trends toward virtual royal jewelry exhibitions and digital engagement, as lockdown restrictions prevented traditional public displays while increasing demand for online cultural content. Royal institutions' development of virtual reality tours, interactive educational programs, and live-stream ceremonies has created new models for public engagement that will likely persist beyond pandemic restrictions. These innovations have made royal jewelry collections more accessible to international audiences while reducing the environmental impact of traditional tourism. As royal jewelry enters the digital age, the fundamental tension between tradition and innovation continues to shape both institutional policies and public expectations. The successful adaptation of royal jewelry traditions to contemporary social values while maintaining their historical significance and cultural authority represents one of the most complex challenges facing modern monarchies. The solutions developed by different royal institutions will likely influence broader discussions about cultural heritage, public access, and institutional responsibility in an increasingly connected and democratized world. The future of royal jewelry will depend on the ability of monarchical institutions to balance historical preservation with contemporary relevance, ensuring that these magnificent objects continue to serve their traditional functions while meeting evolving public expectations for transparency, accessibility, and ethical responsibility. The digital age has created unprecedented opportunities for education and engagement, but also new challenges for security, authenticity, and appropriate display that will require continued innovation and adaptation from royal institutions worldwide.